Hey guys, I want to make a quick video on editing something with a white background. We shoot a lot of things that are on a white backdrop, and this video will help you make sure your background is actually white. Okay, I brought my image into Photoshop. The first thing I always do is make a copy of my background layer, and that's Command J. That way I've always got my original to fall back on, or if I need to use a piece of it for later on, which I probably will for the shadow under her feet. I'll show you a little trick to do that. So I'm just going to turn off that background layer for right now. The next thing I'll do is I'll grab my lasso tool. And I just want to make a real quick selection around my subject. You may look at this and think, well, that's a pretty white background that she's on. Well, it's not as white as you think. Let me show you. So I've made my selection around my subject. I want to inverse that selection. So I'm going to hit Shift Command I, which inverses that selection. Next thing I want to do is Edit, Fill, and I want to fill that with white. Now you can see that that really wasn't very white behind her. One of the things I like to do at this point is make a curves layer. So I'll come down here to Curves, make that curves layer, and I'll just really bring it down, and that helps make it pretty easy to see where I need to dodge around her. And I'll just toggle that on and off sometimes to see. This image is pretty obvious what I need to do, but that helps you. A lot of times your image will be projected on a big screen or be on somebody else's computer, or they'll make a print, and you can see all your mistakes, basically all the areas you forgot to dodge or burn, or your clone errors. So this curves layer really kind of helps make it stand out. And in the end, I'll wind up just deleting that layer. So the next thing I do is I will grab my dodge tool. I want to make sure that I'm affecting only the highlights. My exposure I'll set about 25. And you want to be sure that the protect the tones is off. From this point, I'll make sure I'm on my layer 1, and I'm just going to walk all the way around my image and get rid of that area. And again, I can toggle that on and I can see right what I'm doing. Now when you're against darker pixels like her legs or her skirt up here, you can really go right over that with the dodge tool, since I'm only affecting the highlights, and it won't have really any effect on that whatsoever. So I just work all the way around her shoes here, again her legs. I really don't even have to be careful here. The areas where you have to be careful is right around the white pixels. Since I'm affecting the white pixels, if I go across them, I'll wind up erasing that. We don't want to do that. So we just have to be careful here, and let's go a little slower around the white pixels. But again, once we're against her skin or darker pixels, it's pretty fast and efficient. In Photoshop, there's 3 or 4 ways to do everything, but I found this to be really the fastest way to be sure your subject is on a white background. So there, that looks pretty good. But you might say, well, that's nice, but she's floating. And you're right, she is. So let me show you a little trick for that. So I'm going to come back to my background layer that I had earlier. And I want to make a copy of that again, so Command J. I'm going to drag that copy to the top. And I just want to make a selection of this area down here around her feet, because I want to preserve some of those shadows. So I'm just going to grab my quick mask and my gradient selection, and you want to make sure it's on this first one here. So I'm going to pull up, make a mask. Let's click out of there and actually apply that mask, which is down here. So that looks pretty good, but it's still kind of dirty around here. One of the best kept secrets of Photoshop is this fill slider. You can mess with the opacity and take it up and down, but you still kind of don't get the effect, at least that I'm looking for. So I use the fill slider. Another thing you can do if you don't want the color contamination is let's just change this layer to luminosity, and it just affects the lumen of the image and not really the color. So again, back to the fill slider, I'm just going to slide that back a little bit and preserve some of her shadow. And the only other thing I may do is just grab a black brush and just make sure that there's no remnants of my mask here. So that looks pretty good. So now that I've done that, I will make a copy of all of my layers. And to do that, you hit Shift, Command, Alt, E, and that makes a copy of every layer that you have underneath of it. So now that I'm on that layer, I can make my global adjustments. So here, I'll probably just lighten this up a little bit and add a little hue and saturation. And I'm even lighten her face a little bit. So I'm just going to do a quick mask again. I'll grab, this time I'm going to grab the second one from the right, and it just makes a round mask around there, a gradient mask. And I'm just going to do a curves and just kind of lighten her face up a little bit right there. So now I can take all of these layers and I will put them in a group. And if we toggle that group on and off, we can see where we were and where we are now. So where we were and where we are now. It's just a lot cleaner. So I hope this helps you guys. Take care.